Hi, and welcome to Beyond the Bench podcast, where I discuss problems and issues in the automotive industry beyond the transmission rebuilder's bench. So grab some headphones and a cold beverage of your choice, or if you're on the road and want to learn and kill some time at the same time, then join in.
So, tell me a little bit about you. I'm just learning about you. You kind of are a problem solver for other shops' headaches that they can't fix, and generally, is that what you do most days?
Yes, um, I'm in a bit of every aspect of the industry. So, about 20 years ago, I want to say right at about 25 years ago, I started in not really in the automotive industry, but basically, if I broke down, I had to fix it. My dad gave me the repair manual, bought the parts, and said, if you have any questions, ask. And I had to figure out everything on my own.
Threw you in the water, deep end first, huh?
Yeah, and I learned that way. So then it became a project, and I went into computer technology. Went to tried to go for my Microsoft certification, plus my networking C++, all of that stuff, dealing with peripherals and software side. And I couldn't stay stuck in front of a computer. I couldn't, not even just working on the hardware side was too monotonous to me. I really couldn't get anything out of it. And I was in the restaurant service industry for 13 years and doing automotive kind of here and there. Jumped out of that, went into industrial equipment with my background, with what I did know about anything with automotive related stuff. Did that for about 3 years and went to college just to get a degree, and at the same time started working in the dealerships. So I started working for Infinity, and it was accidental that I started working for Infinity. I put in and applied for a GM dealership, but the group that owned it basically had different manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
So I got through into an Infinity dealership, was there for 3 months, and then transferred to a GM dealership. So that's where I've been for the last 10 years. And the last 7 or 8 of those years, I've been basically a driveline diagnostic, transmission, manual, automatic, rear axle, heavily into electronics, like electrical diag, and diesels.
Have you been at the same dealer the whole time?
No, I went 1, 2, 3, 5. I'm at my 5th dealer. So I'm
Okay.
currently employed part-time by a dealership as well.
Okay. All right. Now I know that you've got a huge social media following, right? Do you share where you work with your social media world, or is that hush hush?
I do it a little bit here and there, but not too much, because then consumers start calling the dealer. And hey, I want
Yeah.
only this guy working on my car, or they want answers. Like, I've got this problem, I want to talk to
Oh
a
yeah.
mechanic. And I'm like, so the service writers knew about it, and they're all good friends with mine, really great colleagues. We all worked at every dealer that I worked at that just did not work out. And it works flawless at the small little dealership.
So you're like a package deal, y'all just go along together.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
Nice.
it works really good. Everybody's a great team. Management is a great team. And yeah, consumers started to call in to the dealer just with 1 or 2 little videos identifying and just giving some information out. And the service writers immediately would say, he's busy with a project. If you want him to stop what he's doing, it's $140 for him to pick the phone up.
I think you just start like back in the '80s, like the old 1-900 numbers. You just set up a 1-900 number, then call you and pay by the minute, like $5.99 a minute, just to talk to you.
That gets even worse because I know I do have another transmission mechanic, but he does semis. He's up in West Virginia, and he's on social media, and he is promoted like a 188 number, and I don't see how he does it, but he's kind of by himself a lot. He may have some downtime to where he's able to do that. And he owns his own shop, runs his own business, has done it since he was a kid. So it may work for him. He doesn't have a major following, like major.
Well, there's something to be said for being your own boss. I mean, there's some curses that come along with that, but there's definitely some benefits, some flexibility, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So
You-
where I've been trying to transfer now is to move forward and get out of the technician level to move into shop owners. I've tried to do it a couple of times, but we were in the middle of COVID. We were in the middle of UAW strike. And Lord, what's happening right now with interest rates? It's almost the biggest fear. And trying to find something simple to where I can just find a 1 year lease and with the right person that's trying to lease it.
Yeah, the right landlord is a big deal.
Because when I
So
tried to announce that I did find a shop, the guy actually owns a shop that's attached to the shop, and then wanted me to start building his BMW Mercedes units. I'm like, I can do those. That's no problem. But then I realized how cheap he was. It's like a used car dealer, and I got that feeling, and I'm like, nope. I just totally backed off.
that always ends poorly.
Bad decision if I pull the trigger on that one.
Yeah, if he becomes your landlord, he's going to want you to be at his beck and call. He goes to the front of the line all the time. He gets a deal, except he doesn't want to give you a deal on the rent. So,
Yes, and I've dealt with that.
well, I would tell you that knowing what I know now and having the connections that I've been fortunate enough to make in some of our industry networking events and training events and that kind of thing, I think it would be pretty exciting to kind of start a shop and start a business from scratch with this network of friends and connections and trainers and coaches. And I've left so much money on the table in the last 20 years that if I had just listened or known to go and ask questions and then listen, because, it took 10 years before I realized that I didn't know everything. So,
Yeah,
that's
it
common
took
story.
me a few years, and it took social media to realize that.
Yeah.
The connections that I've made through social media and people that are on my level and wanting to take it further. So I was held back so much being a dealer tech at wanting to make changes, longevity, helping consumers out, fixing things that manufacturers can't. So that's the type of work that I do. Most of the stuff that we do at the shop is general repair. And the pricing that I'm able to do as far as repairs, and most of them are in house of what I do, beats the price of a dealer reman or the dealer type of work. Sometimes it's higher. And I don't even look at aftermarket reman numbers. We don't even suggest that stuff to the consumer unless we're so backed up that we don't have a choice to help the customer. But yeah, it took me about 2 years to realize that this side of the industry I didn't even know about.
Well, I would tell you that, yes, it's exciting that you can give as good a service or better, and frequently a better service to your customers for less than the dealership charges. But also understand that if it's significantly better and you're going to be a really good boss and give really good pay and really good benefits and really good features to your employees and to your customers, it's okay to be close to the dealership or as expensive as the dealership, or in some situations, maybe even more than the dealership, because you know how to actually fix the problem that's systemic in that transmission or that engine or that whatever the system is, and they're just going to slap units in it, right?
Yeah.
So understand your value. A true high level diagnostician who understands theory and operation and systems is more valuable than the dealership's labor rate, and you deserve to be paid for your knowledge. So don't go cutting your own throat because you feel a drive to be a hero and super cheap. You don't need to be super cheap. You need to get paid for what you're worth, you know?
Yeah, we do look at our numbers because I'm partnered. The shop that I'm at now, I'm basically a part-time tech there. So I do all the diagnostics, R&R, some major repairs, and then my side of the business as the builder. So the way that I run my business side, I look at my numbers, quote everything out as just the repair, billing the repair with the hours, uh, labor and parts all included into everything. And I do that for the shop owner. He takes and he's able to marginalize and mark it up not entirely too much. That way he's making a profit, his profit margin off of it, plus the labor on at the same time. So we're both looking at our margins within the same window without cutting our throats.
Are
And
you going to
nothing's
be coming up to Raleigh next month for the expo?
That's what Lucas invited me up to. He said he was trying to work on some stuff to do that
I think it would
because
be
I,
awesome if you came up. I think you obviously have the technical side and the technical aspects on lockdown, which is a requirement to start a small shop, right? And you think about, 10 years ago, what you didn't know technically um, versus what you know now. You're a subject matter expert now, right?
yeah,
Um, well, there's that same level of gap right now. You're venturing into a new world if you're going to open your own business, and you don't know what you don't know. And so, obviously, I'm biased. I believe that the ASTA Expo is, the best training and networking event in the country, and I've been to almost all of them, right? But this one holds a special place in my heart. But if you realize how much you didn't know a decade ago, technically speaking, and now you're an expert and you're going into a whole new field, there's that much that you don't know, management and ownership speaking, and that knowledge is all there. And yes, there are classes that you can go to, and that has incredible value, and you can find widely different management styles being taught and coached, and you know warnings about the pitfalls that you might not realize, and learn from other people's mistakes so you don't have to make them yourself, right? But
yes.
also dinner, conversation in the hallway between classes, conversation at the bar after the last class of the day, whatever it might be. uh, some of the most valuable advice I've ever gotten from other owners has been in the networking events. So I would, like, totally, you should absolutely come out there, and don't spend the whole time in the tech classes. Come to
I
some of the management classes too.
see that's what I did last year. So I'm not a member of what is ATRA, the
Mm-hmm.
Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association,
Mm-hmm.
but I was invited to come to the Powertrain Expo last year, and I brought another two other shop owners. Well, one's a rebuilder, the other one's a rebuilder slash shop owner now,
Mm-hmm.
and they had never been, and one's been a builder at a shop for, I want to say, 29 years. He lives in a small town and has never really been out, never kind of like taken major vacations or anything like that. So I got with his boss, the shop owner, brought the idea up. I'd already paid for um, the full 3 days to the expo, and most of the classes I signed up for were not really technical training. It was more of the management side. And I had so many questions rebuting so much that I was either shown or part of. It was more that I gained from the people that were there outside of the
Hmm.
classes.
Yeah.
That's where it was.
I think, like I said, the networking is incredible. And the other thing to be aware of is that I've not been to ATRA or to the Powertrain Expo, but I have former board members of ASTA that were members and active there. They had transmission shops and that kind of thing, and they always speak well of it. But if you've ever been on one of my Friday night calls or any of the podcast episodes that I've been on with Lucas or any of the other folks, I would say there's more than one way to skin this cat. There are widely variable different ways to go to market in our business and to help people fix their cars. Um,
Hmm.
there's McDonald's, there's Outback, there's Ruth's Chris. They're all going to fill my belly. They're not the same thing, right? And all
Right.
three of those make good money, but you can't try to be everything to everybody. So you got to figure out what you're going to be. Not one of them is wrong per se. They're just different, and they're going after different consumers and giving different values, right? One's fast and one's cheap, fast and cheap, and then there's kind of the middle of the market, and then there's slow but really good, high value, right? And I think you just got to figure out what kind of business you want to have. You got to find the model you want to run, and then you just become an expert and understand that you don't know everything, and you keep learning, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, the road that I've learned is quality over quantity. That's where I keep things at, because I know if I try to do things fast and cheap, I get bit in a heartbeat. It's not something that I believe in. I watch so many technicians do the same thing. I've seen management do the same thing, and it's not about trying to beat the time.
Well, what's the old cliche? You can have fast, cheap, or good. Two of those three you can have, but you can never have all three. Well, the wrong consumer, if you're going after the wrong consumer, they're going to choose fast and cheap, and they're going to be mad when it's not good, right? um,
Yeah, I've collaborated with a gentleman that does like humor skits, and he threw that in that video exactly about, I want to say, maybe 2 or 3 years ago,
mhm.
and I stole his sound because he does it as like three different people,
Mhm.
and that is a job that the guys work on a job site, that they're construction people.
I mean, it's been a joke for so long, but it's true, right?
Yeah,
You can't have it all, man. You got to figure out which two you're going to offer your customers. So
because all of mine, they take more than a week to get completed. Just one job.
I would tell you that there are an enormous volume of small shops that are like really world-class technicians that got tired of working for the man and they went out and they opened their own shop. And maybe it's them and their wife's up front, or they got one helper, or maybe it's just them, right? And they're really good and they're cheap because they don't charge enough for their value, and they believe that they can't charge enough for their value because it's a mindset thing. They need to realize how high demand they are, and their skill set didn't come cheap, and all those tools didn't come cheap, and they should charge for their value, right? So they're two of those three, right? They're fast. I'm sorry, they're really good and they're cheap, and they're booked out weeks, and their parking lot's just overflowing with cars, and they can never get caught up, and they could work 80 hours a week until they die, and they'd never get caught up because they're really good and they're cheap, and of course people are going to go there.
I had to have that conversation with a really close colleague of mine. He's a World Tech class technician through BMW certified with Lexus and GM at the same time, and he works at the dealer in the daytime, and then would go to his shop at night, and then hire a couple of guys to come over to help as well, and was charging. He said he took on a fleet account, charging them only $50 an hour, and most of it was maintenance and repairs
Oh man.
and minor repairs. And I told him, like, you are kidding me. Like, you don't have any overhead other than paying just to come by the shop after hours and try to do all this work as fast as you can to make a cheap dollar. It
And
makes
if he's going to
no
build it out that way,
sense.
he's always going to be busy, and he's never going to get to take a vacation. He's never going to be able to pay employees well and give them benefits. He's never going to have insurance the way he needs to have it, right?
on the books or anything with the county. He's just doing it to help out another service provider that's been uh, can't get their vehicles in, that has a fleet of trucks. And I'm like, you're still burning both ends of the candle. And I told him,
How many years of physical health do you have in that field? I mean, you're breaking your body over time, right?
yeah, yeah,
And your mind is incredibly valuable because it's such a complex job now. You're investing enormous amounts of money in tooling and diagnostic equipment, and you've got, I mean, 25, maybe 30 years of hardcore wrenching before I mean, you deserve to be compensated well, not just fairly, but well. It's a high demand skill that's hard on your body. Gosh, man, they need to be paid really well. They need to have good vacations. They need to have a retirement that's funded. When you're
yes,
60 years old and your shoulders don't work anymore, you shouldn't have to go be a Walmart greeter. You should only do that if you want to, right?
yeah.
Um,
Only if you just want to. You're at the retirement age to have something to do to
yeah.
fill time, and that you don't really are interested in doing anything else, but you want to be sitting at home or
Yeah, then go be a shuttle driver at a shop where you can just be with the guys and talk junk to each other, but you know not have to. So
yeah, exactly. I've got a colleague that does that exactly.
yeah, I mean I just get wound up about it because I see these guys that are grinding away the best years of their life and not demanding the value that they're worth because they don't believe that they deserve to collect $200 an hour for what they do. But everywhere you go, you see these shops are saying we can't get people to work. We can't get people to work. We need more techs. We need more advisors. We need more people. Well, there's a reason because it's in high demand. So if you're out there doing it on your own, you're a very valuable commodity. You deserve to be paid really well for the best years of your life.
I agree with that because
So,
it's. I've also worked with ASEP students,
mhm.
and I've talked to other shops that do kind of the same thing that I do, and I talk to the shop owners. I talk to the technicians that are there and how they're treated, how they're paid, and then I talk to the shop owners that they take care of their employees, but then they have problems trying to reach out to like technical institutes saying, "Hey, is there anybody that that needs to take hours and accumulate those hours in a specific area, and we can bring them in and pay them as an apprentice, a paid apprentice, not a free apprenticeship." And they're always told, "What's the point? Everything's going to full replacement. Why are we repairing things?" And I do look at the commodity of that to where it's timed down, that the consumer can't sit and wait weeks to get a repair done that is going to take something longevity, but they're in newer technology vehicles. Things are not even available at this time in the market, and it gets really hard.
Yeah. Well, we saw a little bit of what that looked like during the strike, right? UAW
Yeah.
strike, and this is a window into what the future might look like when the transmission's made of unobtainium, and it's going to be 3 to 6 months before we can get you one. So, I felt like we had a storage lot there for a little while. We had so many vehicles parked out on the backside of the lot waiting for driveline units.
Engines too. I see it from various different manufacturers. I talk to technicians across the world. What are they seeing? What are their problems? What are their issues? I listen to people in Canada that go over to Europe and know what's going on in Europe. I talk to technicians and shop owners in Australia. I know people that are here in the US that talk with people in Mexico as well. And sometimes I wish I didn't know. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I really wish I didn't know, but it gives me the advantage to know.
Well, I mean, it's always good to be informed about your given trade, right? But at the same time, go back as far as I know, there have always been people saying that the industry's going away, or that this is going to kill the aftermarket, or this is going to make it impossible for us, for regular folks to work on their cars. Well, it's definitely harder for regular Joes to work on their car, right? But the aftermarket's not going away because people want the ability to choose not to go to the dealership. Just the community consumers want options, right? So that's not going away. And regardless of how cars evolve, even if you get to a point where major driveline repairs are just unit replacements, module replacements, there's still going to be chassis issues. There's still going to be steering components. There's still going to be brakes, and they're ever more complex, right? It's not just slapping brakes anymore, right?
Correct.
So there's always going to be a need for skilled technicians to give the consumer an option. And so I'm very confident in the next 15, 20 years of our industry. And that's probably how long I'll be involved in the industry. So that's the part that I pay attention to the most, right?
Probably still got another 20 years to retirement. I'm 40. I'm 43 now. So
well, that's I'm only a little bit ahead of you. So, but I hope that you do come up to the expo because I'd love to meet you and hang out, and I'd love to get you in and maybe get you on a couple of the other podcasts that'll be there. We've got a whole row of podcasts that'll be there, recording and going live and everything else during the event. It's a lot of fun. So we have we do the go-kart night, which is a blast. We have a casino night, which is a lot of fun. We have the hospitality suite is always a hoot, so there'll be ample opportunities to hang out for a little while. I'm sure that you'll be mobbed by your adoring fans, but maybe we'll squeeze out some time to chat.
Yeah, because it happened when I went to the Powertrain Expo. I was there with thousands of shop owners and technicians, and I told Lucas that was my biggest fear walking into was I'm going to get ridiculed, because if I make one mistake on video or on camera, I see that they make the comments, and I'll agree, or if I'll fix something in the comment section or something like that. So I'm always with the viewers, and it's something that a lot of us really like, only specifically about TikTok, and some things I've recently learned about YouTube, but I haven't really fooled with it yet, is that we're all in the same room. Check Engine Chuck brought that up, and it kind of hit me in the face, and that is the truth. If I make a video and we're all talking in the comments section, we can make video replies to the comments. We can talk like we're sitting there and just going back and forth, chatting, wide open. And
you gotta come.
It's really good. I like it.
A lot of Friday nights, and it's totally random. It's just whenever I get the whim and get the whiskey going, I'll get online live, and I'll just post the link on a bunch of different forums. And sometimes it'll be 4 or 5 of us hanging out talking until midnight, and sometimes it'll be 30 of us. And it goes all over the place. It goes from technical stuff to tools to management to recruiting to benefits to, God forbid, politics. I try to steer it away from that if at all possible.
Yeah. That I have to be really careful about what I say. Really careful, because I've tried to teeter with it once, and it just backfired. It didn't matter. I'd be like, I didn't really come out and say it, but everybody was like,
there's no way you can do it right.
No.
There's no way you can do it right. You're going to piss off half of the people no matter what you do. So,
but yeah, I told Lucas I'm game to come.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it, man. Well, what else do you want to talk about, man? I mean, I just opened a fresh bottle, so I got nothing to do until tomorrow morning, so we can just go all night.
Yeah, if I would have thought about that, then I would have stopped by the liquor store on the way home, but I was trying to finish things up at the shop, then get home, take a shower, relax for just a minute, and then get into it. But
and you're down in the Low Country, South Carolina. Where are you roughly?
I'm in the upstate of South Carolina in Greenville.
Okay. Well, that's not too far then. I got family down outside of in Kershaw County, South Carolina. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure where that. So is that Low Country or is that?
That's not. That's Camden. I'm going to expose my ignorance. It's about 2.5 hours from the house right now. I could be there.
Oh, okay.
So. I've
So
enjoyed talking.
you said that you were kind of like what you're into now as being the shop owner,
Hmm.
that you've always been into that section of it.
Yes. So um, I feel like my dad did a really good job of kind of setting me up for success. So my grandfather opened a shop in 1937. My dad grew up in that shop. And then my dad got a shop in 1982, and I grew up in that shop. When all through high school, I, changed tires and changed oil and, swept up, mopped, that kind of stuff. Um, when college didn't work out for me. I'm just not the college student type, I guess. When I came back to the business, rather than teaching me how to be a true technician and not just a looby, right?
Yeah.
What he did is he taught me how to read financials. He taught me marketing. He taught me how to be a service advisor, you know, how to interview and negotiate with vendors. He taught me how to run a business. That was a huge advantage, I think. Uh, no, I can't go back and repair vehicles. You don't want me repairing vehicles, but um, what I can do is I can operate the business effectively. And so when I started buying dad out in 2016, and eventually I completed that buyout, and then I started opening additional shops. And I feel like I'm 10 years ahead of where I would have been if he had taught me how to repair cars, for better or for worse. So,
My dad didn't want me working on cars. When he was younger, his dad was a semi driver, so he worked over the road. And they had their own shop at the in on the estate property. So any repairs were mostly done there. My dad went off to Lincoln Technical Diesel College in Nashville, Tennessee, and he went through that. When he came home, he was expected to work on the semis and do all the work and not get paid, like a family kind of organized deal.
mhm.
And him and his dad got into a big fiasco about it. Said, "Screw you! I'm not doing this." And went off, worked in a paper mill for a little while, and then finally got his foot in the door at General Electric gas turbine, and has been there for over 40 years now. And he's supposed to retire, I want to say, within the year.
So he's working on jet motors then?
It's the gas turbine generators.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
the gas turbine generators, I worked at GE for about 6 months as well. I worked in the production side as far as building the mainframe systems for the turbines, dealing with the drawings, dealing with the electrical engineers, the hydraulic engineers, the mechanical engineers, and working, putting all that stuff together, filing everything for the fabricators on the shop floor. And then I learned the politics side of that in a heartbeat when I would have either the regional area manager over the entire section that wanted somebody to figure out the problems in the logistics issues. Why are we having problems with either the fabricators not having the parts? Why are they standing around? Is there a breakdown issue between what would be called the MDS, which is where the warehouse system is, and the parts would be getting to the fabricators?
Hmm.
And what it would be was the fabricators were stealing parts from one shift to the next. And when I found out the problem and brought it up, and like we did a whole full presentation on everything, I was told, I can't do that. I can't call this guy at 3 o'clock in the morning and ask him why he's taking parts from this shift and why these parts are missing. And okay, so we did all this to find the problem, to fix the problem, and we're not going to do anything about it. And
Well,
I
and it wasn't the
left.
problem that they thought it was going to be, and they didn't want to hear about the problem that it was, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that creates
And
more headaches. So
I
just put your
can't,
head back in the sand, Mr. Ostrich, and keep going.
so I had to, I remove myself from situations where I see bad management and the people that do not care, that want to make it better, that are paid to sit there and come up with resolutions to these problems. These are $10 million units. It just made no sense. So I kind of got out of that side of the industry really quick.
I think that's universal, though. People quit bad leadership, bad management, bad bosses way faster
Yes.
than they'll quit like a bad environment or like crappy coworkers. Like the people put up with crappy coworkers a lot longer than they'll put up with a crappy boss.
Yeah. Chris
So
Craig's been talking about that. I don't know if anybody's introduced who he is to you.
no, who's that?
So Chris Craig is an ex Ford service advisor. He's been through automotive management. He holds 2 degrees. One is a associates in applied automotive technology, and 1 degree for the business side of automotive technology. So when everything happened with COVID, he was still working at the dealer. He was dealing with bad management, and he's all over social media and works for a company called Rocked right now and promoting technical training to service advisors.
Greg
But
with two
he's,
G's.
I'm sorry,
Chris Gregg with 2 G's.
Craig,
Gregg.
CR. He's on LinkedIn. He's done a white paper we
Got him.
promoted that we've done.
Got him. I found him. Fixed ops content owner
Yes.
for Rocked. Got it.
And Rocked wants to focus on the dealership side level, but we've tried to get him to reach out way past that, go to the independent side, because we did a study on how many dealers there are versus how many independent shops.
Oh, there's no comparison, right?
Yeah. And
And the
Chris was
dealers,
blown
the small
back.
dealers are going out of business. And they're all getting merged into these mega groups, conglomerates, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are fewer and fewer small dealers, and there are fewer and fewer small town dealerships. And so you're going to have these big geographical gaps where the the new dealer model requires so much population density that
Yeah.
it's gonna have to be served by independents and by the aftermarket. So yeah, I'm okay with that. You know, I enjoy working in rural markets as much as I do in the city.
Yeah, because the amount of volume that the dealerships do take in, and then we're having the backlog side of that because of the lack of technicians to service the population as it grows. And it goes and overflows to the independent side. And the lack of training at the dealer level, those service writers that do come in, they don't have the experience, and they're just thrown into it. And they're not given that opportunity to do it. That's what Rocked is doing with Chris Craig. And Chris has been flown out multiple times to film a lot of pieces doing B-roll. He does a lot of B-roll at home. He tries to find a shop setting in order to do that now that he finally left the dealer that he was at. And he's doing very well for himself. And I've always loved the way Chris's approach to the industry and how he makes little short clips and situations and scenarios. And his ending to everything is, but I want to know your thoughts. It's not to where he's telling you what to do. He's inviting you to engage into it, engage into the content, and it makes it worth it.
So do you know who Jim Kokonis is?
No.
So he's the former director of curriculum development for CarQuest Technical Institute. And he now is working with a couple of different organizations on the kind of the evolving educational world around the automotive world. And he will say that the time and the age of sage preaching to you and you sit there and they talk for 4 hours while you take notes has gone away, and that the modern learning model has to evolve, and it has to be engaging in a conversation and in much more bite-sized chunks because the attention span has gone down, right?
Yes.
So he is actually he and Brian Pollock, who is a technician owner in upstate New York, are doing they're doing a class at the expo this year called "Shit You Don't Know But You Should Know," and it's just a bunch of little like short 10-15 minute vignettes, case studies, um, shortcuts, just operational theory, understanding bits, and that kind of thing that help you be able to diagnose problems more efficiently. Because they're both at heart, they're both high-level diagnosticians, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I don't think they have anything that's going to be more than 20 minutes long. And then there's going to be discussion, Q&A, short break, and then into the next one. And so, you talk 8 straight hours about the same topic with no conversation, no back and forth, no Q&A. The retention is so low on that for most young techs. So they're really trying to reinvent how live training events happen, and I think that's pretty cool.
I agree with that. One seminar that I was at that I specifically got really involved into at the ATRE Powertrain Expo last year had to do with GM 10 speed and GM and Ford 10 speed units. Very specific information as we're going into repairing those. There's no real recalls, only service bulletins, no extended service contracts that either or have for them right now. They're just only repaired under warranty. Most of them anywhere are usually low miles if there's a problem.
Yeah, they
but
fail.
they're getting right at beyond 60,000 miles. I mean, right at above 60,000 miles, and then they're having a problem. And then they're having to go to the dealer, request assistance from the manufacturer. It's up to the
Having to ask for
manufacturer to
goodwill
decide.
consideration.
Yeah. I mean, I would see it right on the borderline. Anything that's like way beyond that, that's kind of way far fetched. There's nothing you can really do about that. But it's still up to, they can still ask. But going into that class, I'm listening to an ex GM engineer that is going page by page in the technical seminar. I've got the book there, and I am ready to ask 20 million questions in front of probably 700 people in this classroom. It was the first time that I spoke up before anything had ever started. First day of the seminars, I met a whole bunch of people, but in the middle of that class, I was surrounded by a couple of colleagues from social media, and they were just fascinated to learn everything I was about to ask and what was being shown on the screen that he was going over. And it just became really long-winded to a point to where the person doing the seminar was asking questions, bits and pieces here and there, keeping engagement within the audience as he's doing the seminar. And I hear a young kid pipe up that people on social media need to stop talking about crap that we're doing against the EPA and blah, 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 because we get tuning involved to fix problems, warranty issues. Even if you get a reman companies are allowing us to go in and retune everything as much as, and they don't care because it prolongs their warranty. And that's kind of what we're trying to gain into it, but trying to get the consumer to buy an additional part to do that specific type of tuning is kind of hit and miss. We're at the point where unless it's a 17 and model later vehicle, it doesn't matter what manufacturer, we don't really tell them it's included in the price because it's not really a lot. So it's still there and it's fine. But anything later than that gets real expensive really fast. And there was a piece that brought up about filters, something simple as filters. That the engineers stated that in earlier 10 speeds that they had this bimetal flap that would change motion to allow fluid to go across 1 micron section of the filter, and as it heated up, it would shut off that one section of the filter because the fluid temperature was different and the viscosity rating changed, and it would double over. He said, well, they changed that in later ones. So I piped up and asked him, I said, you're 100% sure this is facts and this is truth? And everybody heard my voice. That's all they had to hear, and just turned around. I'm in the back of the room and I'm yelling, probably 75 yards across this big hallway asking this question, and everybody got in really engaged, started asking questions, and and started passing over their business card really quick because they're like, "Crap, I didn't know this guy was in here." But the engagement of people asking questions and doing it in a short burst is true, because I even see it with social media. I can't hold anybody's attention span trying to teach them something if I don't show it quick enough, fast enough, and hold it for 45 seconds is the most I can hold the attention.
So, have you ever been in a class where either the instructor says, somebody asks a question, says, "We'll get to that. Let me just finish making my point. We'll get to that, or we'll get to that at the end," or hold all your questions for the end, and then they never get to it because they don't want to take questions and they don't want to have to defend what they're saying? Totally seen that happen in management classes before.
Yes, I have. It's been quite a while. That one seminar that I was in, what he would do would he would get to of one section of the seminar, and then and say any questions, or he would go to the end of the page or the end of two pages into it and say any questions and just stop.
Well, that's good that he was willing to stop and
That
take
was good.
questions. So that proves that he has confidence and belief in the content that he's teaching then. Because in my experience, if somebody's like, "Oh, well, hold all your questions till the end," and then they make sure that they run overtime so there's no time for questions, it's that they don't want their content to have to stand up to scrutiny or to opposing views. And look, if you're going to be getting paid to be in front of a room full of people, teaching them as the subject matter expert, then you need to be confident that you can take questions and entertain dissenting views, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um, I think that's a further evolution. That's the nature of social media, right? Is it's a constant conversation. Like you said, everybody's in the room,
Yeah.
and you post a video, but the conversation goes on for weeks in the comment section, right? Especially if it's something that strikes a nerve. Um,
Yes.
and so I think that's the nature of the discourse for everyone in today's world, much less technicians and shop owners and that kind of thing. So I think that our training events, if they're going to stay relevant, need to evolve in that direction. So we've got another thing we're doing, little 4 consecutive 1 hour segments with 4 different speakers on 4 different topics, and they do 45 minutes of content, 10 minutes of Q&A, and then a 5-minute break. And so every day we have a 4-hour session that's like that, with different topics. And so I think we should push more and more in that direction so that we can get more and more people covering. And then, if the conversation's really lively, it just flows out into the hallway, right? You've been to these
Yeah.
convention centers, the hallways are 30 feet wide. There's space to go out there and keep talking, right? So,
Yeah. In the
um,
short burst of time that you have in between the classes, that's
yeah.
why when they did the Powertrain Expo, it was like I wanted to be a part of so many, but so many I had to back out of, saying that I'm going to be here because we had an app for the Powertrain Expo that we can actually talk to each other through,
Mhm.
that only the specific people that are there invited that are attending are actually able to talk. So I
Mhm.
could talk to speakers. I could talk to a whole bunch, anybody that's individual, saying, "Hey, I'm glad to see you here. I'm glad to see that you're going to be attaining this class." But if something ran over, I'm in the middle at the end of one class, and we're in a time frame in between, short break before we break for lunch or something like that, and then do classes in the evening. I was changing my schedule in between classes almost every time because I'm like, there's no way that I'm gonna have time to do that because there's so much to talk about in between that I can't do it all, and there's not enough time in 3 days. There's never.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's fun. It's so much fun. So, um, yeah, if you've got listeners or viewers that have never invested in themselves to go to an event like that, they really ought to. I mean, it's such a good time, and you get better at what you do, right? You're honing your craft. You get if you really want to be an expert, this technology is evolving so quickly that you can't. If you're an expert today and you don't go to any training or read any industry journals, For 18 months or 24 months, you're no longer an expert. It's just
I agree
evolving that
with that
quickly. Yeah.
because I
So
have colleagues like I'll get behind on some things that are happening with GM, so I still try to stay up with that stuff. And even with like, all my training classes are done. I just keep up with emerging issues that come out every single month, and I have to talk to the other technicians, and I still go by the dealer because they don't really call me all the time saying, "Hey, I've got this major problem." It's only when I show up to pick up parts, like first thing in the morning,
they're like,
and
hey, he's
then,
here. Go grab him.
yep, then the service manager says, "Hey, I've got this problem. Can you go over here and help him figure out this issue?" And I'll fix it, and he'll pay me time, whatever. It doesn't matter to him, but it keeps his training stats up at the dealer, keeps my training stats up at the same time, and then he doesn't have to worry about paperwork as far as like when I physically left to go do more other things full time. He's like, I don't feel like doing termination papers. I'm just going to keep you on. And it's a win-win. I'm like, hey, it works. I can keep up with my training. It keeps up the training stats for the dealer. And I mean, I have no problem with it. We all work.
So, are just real quick, I don't know why I got drawn back. I guess you talking about not doing termination paper. It's made me think about it. Are you opening your own shop? Is that is that a thing?
That's what I'm looking into, trying to find the property because that's what I'm gaining for. And the
What?
problem that I had with the one shop, because everything was down to the wire of this past Friday to do it. And the more things went one way or the other with the guy that was leasing the property, texting me about, I've got this guy with the Dodge diesel truck. And then I made a video about it because I was so aggravated that the customer already did his research and said, this is the one from the parts house that I want you to purchase and put in. Then he says he confirmed it with the parts house. And then I went behind and I told him my price, which was like $1,700 higher than the actual unit. And I did my research and I told him, I'm like, that transmission itself, the core cost is $3,500, but you're telling me that the customer already looked it up and found one for $2,300. And I did my research. I'm like, that's for a gas truck.
Yeah, it's out of a
It's the
flood
wrong
car
one.
with 250,000 miles on it.
And I couldn't educate him to enough to understand that the consumer has already done his research. Then you're relying on information from the parts house, which you're about to get into a can of worms. And I tried to educate him and let him know. And I'm like, I already see how this is going to happen. And I just walked away.
It's the best thing you could do, man. It's
I'm
the
like,
best
I
thing you could
just
do.
dodged the biggest bullet. Even though it's a good location, it's almost in the middle of nowhere where I can bring consumers to it with the right type of marketing, even though
Yeah.
it's in a bad area that could be brought up and changed over time if I talk to the city council and trying to get people involved into it to make a change. Because they did
Well,
that with Greenville. They did that with Greenville. And the other areas can do that. It's just having the conversation about bringing change.
I'll tell you that I'm in the general repair business, right? So I'm not a specialty shop. We all makes, all models, and I know that specialty business is a little bit different, but um, you can be in a low rent building and you'll pay more for marketing to drive cars, or you can be in a high rent building and pay almost nothing for marketing because you're in a good market, right? So
Yep.
you're gonna pay one way or the other for cars, and there's not one right way or the other. I think I don't know, with a transmission shop, they're gonna drive past a dozen other shops to get to a transmission specialty shop, right? Because they're trying to find a specialist, just like a Euro specialist, um,
Well, in this
or a
city,
performance shop.
I did a lot of research that most of my consumers are coming from this area, and there's only one transmission shop in the area.
What part of Greenville are you in? I'm looking at a map right now of Greenville.
So, well, we're located on Anderson Road, but the shop that I'm looking at is in Anderson, South Carolina.
Okay.
So, a 20-minute drive versus a 45-minute drive from where I'm physically at now to the shop I'm located at versus the other one, kind of. but there are multiple shops in my area, and we're all covered up. I know everybody.
Can you go get one right on the lake so you can just look out from the bay onto the lake?
I
That's the way to
wish,
do it, brother.
I wish, I wish Lake Hartwell.
Yeah.
I would take the drive down to Lake Hartwell.
No, man, I would. I mean, you've got a killer reputation already, right? And people come looking for you. So you don't have to have the hot location. You can be off the beaten path. They're going to come find you. Um, and so that's good. Uh, how much space do you need? You need like 5,000 square feet. How many
Look,
bays do you want?
wanting at least two, and one section of the shop that has to be completely. If I use the third one, so this shop had 3 bays, and the office was extremely small. The other shop that I'm looking at, that's literally 10 minutes down the road, is 7,000 square feet, 2 bays, nice office space. It is
Clean
priced
room?
at, yes, very clean. It was a small little dealership. It used to be
Oh,
like independent dealership, not a
okay.
big dealership.
Yeah.
And it's up for lease, but it's through a property management company. So I haven't really called them yet. I'm still looking at the property as of the last couple of days. It's got 2 major bays, fenced in completely, and I think they're pricing it out at $10 a square foot.
Triple net? Yeah. I mean, you just need to back into what the revenue needs to be to make it work, right?
Yeah.
So there, there, there are calculators out there that you can get and just put in your overhead and put in your rent and put in, what you expect your labor cost to be and that kind of thing, and it will tell you what you need your revenue to be to break even. You're not in this business for breaking even, man. If you want to
No,
break
I'm not,
even,
and that's
go back to the dealership if you want to break even, right? If you're going to go on your own, you need to make a profit. So
yeah, and that's where I'm at now. Is for week's end, I see Lucas at the end of every week. He'll say, "So let's talk about your losses," and I'm like,
how much time you got?
"Yeah, how much time do you have?" Because it's I'm always breaking even because we always have an issue or problem that will come back. If it's something that's been gone for 9 months to a year, there's always that hiccup that will happen, and it'll come back, and then it falls upon me. And some things that, so I'm sublet out through the independent shop that I'm at now, and he relied on using. So he doesn't use tech. I'm trying to think of.
TechNet, Napa Auto Care,
I think it's
WorldPax
TechNet.
warranty. Yeah,
I
that's
think
right.
it's TechNet. We George had an issue on a unit that I didn't even build, that was a reman installed, and it didn't cover certain parts of it. He come to find out when he called them that they don't cover anything that's either engine or transmission related.
That's not
Something in the
TechNet then.
package deal. Some I don't think it is TechNet. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but it's supposed to be a uh, nationwide extended policy that he has built in, that where he can have 2 major failures within a year's time, no questions asked, covered. It's like an insurance type policy that's
Yeah.
on the shop, but it's for repairs. And there was a major discrepancy where, as it's described to the consumer, and the consumer thinks it's one thing. I'd have to talk to him directly to remember exactly. And where the consumer thinks that, it's a major coverage, and then George is fully out of pocket, almost $7,000 out of nowhere.
That'll knock the wind out of your sails real quick.
Yeah, it.
So okay, I'm gonna get back on my soapbox for a minute. It's one of the reasons that we've got to charge our worth, because sometimes stuff like that pops up out of nowhere, and you've got to be willing to do the right thing by your customers. You got to be, and it's not about being willing to, because I choose to believe that all of us are ethical and we're not crooks, right? So assuming we're not crooks, we also have to be able to afford to do right by our customers when things go south. And that's one thing that you'll get. And I'll go back to my food analogy. You go to Ruth's Chris and the steak's not cooked right, they're going to get you another steak and they're not going to charge you for it, right? You go to McDonald's and you ask for no pickles and they put pickles on your sandwich, they're going to say sorry. It's about as far as you're going to get,
as
right?
far as you're going to get.
Yeah. So maybe they'll say sorry. Maybe. But probably you've already driven away and you're back on the interstate and you're not going to turn around and go back. But I think, you know, you need to build into your business model a pricing such that you are profitable enough to make things right when they go wrong. Because if you've got no money and you're trying to figure out who you're going to pay and who you're not going to pay on your vendor list until you close that next big job, well, then you can't afford to make it right for that customer. And you're going to start cutting corners or making up excuses or whatever it might be. So you got to do it the right way from day one.
I agree with that, and that's what we do. That's exactly what I do. And I've had to have major conversations with consumers that come to the shop that know me off of social media, but do everything with the service writer, and I rarely even see them until they either come to pick their vehicle up, or they may have a little quirk issue here and there, and we make some minor adjustments. Something just like an oversight, something not even seen even on a 20-mile test drive, and full visual inspection when it comes back to make sure there's no leaks, no problems, nothing's
Kind of hate that
lit up.
stuff.
So there's
It always happens to the nicest customers too, right? It never happens to the asshole. Sorry.
And no, and it's most of the time that between the writer and George is that if it's something diesel related, I've had a recent diesel conversation, diesel owner with a Duramax, that when he came to pick up the truck, everything was fixed perfectly fine, and he went to get in the truck and noticed a minor tear in the center of his driver's seat, and he came and got me and asked me if I noticed it was there or not, and I told him, I said, I cannot recall, and he just his tone and demeanor almost immediately changed, and he said, well, I guess I'm just going to have to deal with it and jump in until I can get it fixed, and shook my hand and then jumped in the truck and left. I immediately went, called the $250 is nothing when it comes to
The
that
lifetime
satisfaction.
value of a happy customer.
And he lives 4 hours away.
And look, and maybe that had been there for 6 months, but he just spent $5,000, so he's going to be looking at his car with new eyes, thinking that everything should be perfect, right? But I don't know what he's. I don't know what he
It
spent.
didn't even get a transmission repair.
Yeah.
It was a wiring pigtail repair,
Yeah.
and the truck is still coming back. He called back 2 weeks later after that, after we told him that, I had the writer call, say we got the seat cushion covered. He's like, you didn't have to do that. I was just really upset about it. And he's like, no. That's not how we do business. First time customer. And
But so
values
it's really easy. It's really
what we
easy.
do.
It's really easy to make happy customers when things go right. But
Yes.
the true sign of a customer service focused business is when things go off the rails. Do you have happy customers at the end? And that's, you're profitable enough that you can do that. So
Yeah.
good on you.
Well, he called back extremely irate 2 weeks later, cussed George out and the writer out, because the same problem that he originally brought it in for happened just randomly again. And he's like, you're going to have to pay for a $400 tow bill to tow this thing all the way back from Georgia, and yada, yada, yada. And George was like, whoa, hold on. He tried to calm the consumer down. And Ryan can't handle heat. Ryan will immediately fire. He's the service writer. Will immediately fire the customer. If the customer gets screaming irate, now he wasn't nothing like that, but these are the type of shop owners and the service writer that I have to deal with. Will immediately fire the customer if they do anything like that. Or
that's part of the gig of being a service advisor, is people shoot the messenger, right? So
yeah, and said all this, that, and the other. I go to pick up some parts. I go to do something else. I can't remember what I was doing. Oh, I was going to the machine shop. I had to get something repaired, something that's discontinued, to fix a part so I can get the customers back on the road. And we kind of do that. If a part's discontinued, I can't get it for ungodly amount of time. I can go to a fabricator or machine shop, pay them anywhere from $25 to $60, and have the part fixed that day, back in the vehicle and
Yeah,
gone. That's
you're a
the little
hero.
thing.
You're a hero.
And I was gone, and I come back, and this phone number sitting on the desk, and I'm like asking everybody, I'm like, what's this phone number for? And the service writer says, I don't know. I think George left it there. George tells me the next day, this is the guy with the Duramax. He's like, just call him from the shop phone. I'm like, nope. I called him from my personal phone. That he was that irate and that mad, which is my business phone. And I was like, Joe, I want you to tell me right now, when did it happen? How did it happen? Let's get this resolved. I said, I want to do everything it's going to take to fix that issue. He said, the same code came back up, Brandon. He said, man, he said, I just don't know what the heck is going on with it. I don't want to have to pay for another $400 tow bill. So I came down to the consumer's level while he was not irate. 27 minutes on the phone. I gathered all the information that it happened only at 100 miles of driving and clear skies. And I told him, I was like, well, I'd like to get it back, take care of whatever it is that I may have to pull apart the entire engine harness on a mint condition truck that has just under 100,000 miles on it, very well taken care of, very good, understanding, patient consumer that has left this truck with me for a month before I could get to it. And he's like, all right, Brandon, let's set a time. I'm going from here to here. He works for Duke Energy, by the way, and he flies a helicopter to do surveys on the power lines on the grid. He said, I come swing through the next time. I'm just going to drop the truck off with you if I've got the time to, and you just take care of it whenever. Take your time. I went to George and Ryan. I was like 27 minutes on the phone. 27 minutes of my time on the phone that you could have de-escalated that conversation.
Well, sometimes people just need to feel they need to vent and they need to feel heard. And look, I struggle with that. If somebody is being totally irrational and they're being abusive to my employees,
Now
I'll go take the phone out of their hand and be like, hey, it sounds like you're not happy. I wanted you to be able to speak to the owner. Tell me what's going on, right? And I'll try to de-escalate. But if they're just totally disconnected from reality, some of the guys they'll stiff arm me, right? They want me to no, because they're better at dealing with really angry customers than I am. Because be like, no, you can't talk to my people that way. Get bent. Go away. You're not gonna call my service advisor an MFer, right? No, that's not how we do
no,
business.
That's a little that's not going to happen because my wife's a service writer at another Chevy dealer, and she's really good at her job. She does everything to take care of the consumer, and she has dealt with so many that will just flat out cuss her out. She was like, all right, well, let me get you a manager. And then her boss, which used to be my boss at one point, would handle it from there, and she'd go off in the back and just start screaming into the shop.
One of my guys, he's just, I don't know how he does it. He just has this switch that he flips over and he disconnects in his brain. And these people would just be screaming at him on the phone. And he's just, he starts pacing and he's just walking around on the phone. And he's like, oh gosh, I really feel bad about that. And, that's totally not the way we want you to feel. We really want, and it's amazing because my blood pressure is going up just hearing what's the one half of the conversation on the other end of the room. And, and he just takes it, man. And he's like, dude, when they're talking to me like that, I'm at the beach. I'm just thinking about, palm trees and Mai Tais and beautiful women in bikinis walking down the beach. And once they run out of steam, then I just talk them down off the cliff. And then by the end of it, they're apologizing for their behavior and, happy to have him give them service and happy to pay for repairs. So, it's a skill, just like anything else. It's a skill.
Yeah. I don't think the other two have that because when I hear the situation, the scenario, the first thing I think of is anything that has to do with that subsystem runs directly through my head about the customer complaint, what the complaint is, directly right off the bat. And I'm like, most of the time, the consumer wants the answer over the
Hmm.
phone. So that is where the fear builds up inside of me. But the second I get on the phone, it's like a switch just came on. And I'm a totally different person. I don't care about anything that's happening with the car. I want to worry about the customer and trying to either allow them to release their frustration without getting too extreme. If it gets too extreme, then it's more of like nothing
It's
you
not
can do at
appropriate.
that point.
Yeah.
That's I'd be like, listen, my tone will come down in a heartbeat to where I'm like, listen, are we gonna try to resolve the situation? I will slow down so slow because all we're doing is trying to vent about a problem and an issue that nobody can fix at the moment.
I think
Nobody can do anything.
that's so impressive that you realize what you're doing, and I don't know if it's intentional or if it came naturally and then you realize what it was, but there's a book on the art of negotiation and de-escalation, and it was written by the FBI's head hostage negotiator. It's called Never Split the Difference. And what you just described, he calls it the late night or the FM DJ voice. And it's like, the late night DJ who's just
Yeah.
bringing it down and slowing it down and bringing the tone down and just, let's just calm this down, and how effective that is at taking the air out of the ball when people are so pent up and so full of like just. So the fact that you do that is pretty impressive, and it's very effective if you can have the wherewithal in the moment and to not get sucked into their whirlwind, right?
Yeah.
And realize, oh, they're spinning out of control. I got to slow it down. And just slow your language down and slow your tone down, and it's super effective. It's super effective, and most people don't realize that. Good
I
on you.
was I was afraid to talk in front of people. The first time I ever published anything on social media, I was sweating, shaking so hard and nervous about it, and then hit the publish button and just let it ride and got easier. I'm not really talking directly in front of millions of people, but I actually am. And I don't think about it that way. And that built up the ability to move beyond just a one-on-one conversation and determine I built a persona that actually helps me talk with consumers, talk to everybody in management, talk to other colleagues. And I get so many comments all the time is like, I could sit there and just listen to you read a book. It's not even what I'm talking about. It's that I can just listen to your voice. And then some people will say, you should be on NASCAR and be an announcer. And I'm like, I don't know that I could do that. but but I get it. I get it. There's various different reasons people do listen. And if I can have the power and impact to help and get other people invested into learning to benefit them,
That's awesome.
that's how I feel.
That's
That
great, man.
I took all the knowledge that I've ever learned and what I'm still learning and teach that to somebody, even though it might be the guy next to me that just told me something. I'm like, hey, the world needs to know that. And then I'll get phone calls for that same very reason. And then I'll get stuff in major groups, and I'll just listen like I'm reading the newspaper and listen to all the groups in the professional groups that I'm in, and I'll take a subject and I'll go to talk about it and bring my aspect, and then we start generating a conversation.
I think that is the environment where you're going to have the most active learning and the most, like, it will stick, right? I think that engaged conversations among peers that are on the similar level, close to one another, you can't have the entry level kid just out of tech school and a bunch of high level master diagnosticians. That there's going to be a disconnect there. That sometimes the bridge is too far, right? But you have a bunch of peers just talking and problem solving together, or spitballing scenarios together. That's where the best learning happens. So I think it's cool that you've generated that community and you're a part of it. So
Yeah, because I can't relate to those that can't understand. And I try to figure a way when I do explain it that it's simplified and it's just free flowing. And if it's, I can get on a technical level, and if we get on a technical level, anybody that watches that type of content is just going to be like, I have no interest in it. They're either there to listen to the voice or just move on. And then I'll get those peers that do understand that, that'll be in the comment section. And that's where the networking part comes into effect. And I don't have daily consumers that don't even understand what the world I'm talking about, and then I'll conversate with like-minded individuals.
Well, I think if you're truly a subject matter expert, then you can explain systems or operations or theory in words that can be understood by the layperson, right?
Yeah.
And otherwise, if it's just ASMR for David Roman, then it's good, right? So maybe you've got that voice. I don't know. So
3-bay service drive, roll up door in the front and the back, and 8 service riders and 35 technicians. At the front of the house, the shop that dealt with certain issues, and a back of the house shop that dealt with certain issues. But we all kind of worked together, and in a quick lane section.
100 cars a day, 120 cars a day.
It was actually slower than that. It was 90
with 35 technicians.
It slowed down.
Yeah.
There was a point where they were doing anywhere from 100 to 120 a day, and then it slowed down. And the only reason why it was in the middle of the key recall that GM had about doing inserts, and the dumbest recall. But
I believe it was just to put cars in the base so they could find other shit to do.
That was the biggest ploy that we all got into, but it was also to remove and alleviate to the consumer having an accident, and educating the consumer that, hey, you can't have this much weight on your keychain. You
can't have a 7-pound keychain.
Yeah, but and then once we ran through a whole bunch of that stuff, then it died and it slowed down, and it went from 120 to 90, and then we would have maybe the technicians probably could have 2 or 3 cars to look at the day, and then still waiting on an answer, and not maybe get an answer, maybe not get an answer. And then by 2:00 in the afternoon, we're sitting there till 6:00 in the afternoon,
staring at each other, watching the clock turn.
Yeah. Or doing training, whatever training we could do.
So that's, that leads into a whole nother conversation about technician compensation and the evolution in there. That's a whole nother discussion that I feel pretty passionately about. My job is to make the phone ring. I hire service advisors. Their job is to convert phone ringing into car in bay. Your job as a technician is to find the work, diagnose the work, repair the cars. If I don't make the phone ring, all of you should still get paid. The service advisor gets the car in the building but can't sell the work, you should still get paid as the technician. If I make the phone ring, the service advisor gets the car in the building, and you do a crappy job of diagnosing or inspecting the vehicle, that's another conversation, but that's a management conversation.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways for technicians to get screwed in this industry historically. And I think that they finally have leverage because it's such a scarcity situation right now for really high skilled technicians. They finally have the leverage to demand an end to the abuse that has been happening for generations, 3 generations. Technicians just been getting screwed. Yeah, I'll step off the soapbox again.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You can do anything you want to. I really don't care. I love these conversations because I'll do the same thing with most of my colleagues. We have little individual Snapchat groups, and we keep it to minimum of like 3 or 4 people, only to roundhouse or let off steam. And I'm the only one that works for an independent at a dealer and has my own business at the same time. The other one is a technician at a dealer. One is a shop owner, and the tech single-handedly runs everything himself with 2 bays. And the other one has been left the dealer, now doing his own thing in his own shop, fully wide open all the time, doing nothing but diesel repairs. And then when people found out in his area he can do transmission stuff as well, oh Lord, all the shops in his area have gotten pissed off. So we kind of keep a tight knit group together that where we can either vent, talk about problems and issues, come up with suggestions. Just one person will say, "Well, think about it this way," and just shut up, and we'll all listen. And you're like, "Why didn't I think of that?" Just the little stuff that we do to help each other. It is phenomenal. One technician, I just really want to ring his boss and the world class technician that he works with, because world class technician doesn't do the diagnostic. He ends up doing the diagnostic, and the job gets taken off and feeds the technicians that have been there the longest, and then he doesn't make any hours. And I've wanted so bad to just open my mouth on social media, but Paul's not going to give me full information. And I told him, I said, don't you dare do it, because one day I'm going to be sitting here and I'm going to be so mad, and I'm just going to go off the handle, and I'm going to call every one of them out flat on social media, and I'll pull a million people behind me, because that right there is the biggest devaluation. That is worse than being a lube tech, and it infuriates me the
Yep.
worst.
So yeah, so like I think this goes back to what we said earlier, right? About people leave bad leadership.
Yeah.
I talked a little bit a minute ago about technicians getting screwed over and different pay plans and how they're compensated, and how it's all down to, forgive my language, I don't know if you allow cursing on your podcast or not, but it's all down to shitty ownership or shitty
Can you put
management.
a beep in there?
Okay, all right. Um, so I've got a name badge that I wear at some of our events. I can probably go pull it out of the console of the truck. But right when Lucas's changed the name of his Facebook group to Changing the Industry podcast, I had a tag for a while that I was shitty shop owner was my tag on there. Um, because my point was, flat rate is not evil. Flat rate works for some people. The shops where flat rate doesn't work is because they have shitty owners, and they have guys who don't care about their team, or they have guys who take advantage of their team, or they have guys who, service advisors who can't sell, or owners who don't market, or whatever it might be. Pay plans are agnostic. Every pay plan has a weakness, and every pay plan has a strength. If you have a really well-run business, any pay plan will work. If you have a very poorly run business, any pay plan will fail. It's all about the leadership, ownership, management, whatever you want to call it, depending upon the organization. Every shop that has a dysfunctional atmosphere, every shop that has a me first, I don't care about the team atmosphere, it all comes back. In a small shop, it's the owner. In big corporate organizations, it's the manager, right?
Yes.
And so if you're a technician or a service advisor in a broken shop, guarantee you it's your leader. It's the management or it's the ownership, one or the other. And that's why people leave. And that's why people are leaving this industry to go work at GE, because, well, all of the things that we just talked about, and it's air conditioned. So, um, I don't know. Again,
Yeah,
got me off on another tangent.
the one dealership that I did leave paid very well coming in, and by the time I ended up leaving, was just offered a pay increase, and we started implementing social media. My service manager plus the ops director, which is the owner of the dealership's son, and everything was good. Everything was fine, and there was two little hiccups, two videos that I may have made that started a little bit of a discretion conversation that led to a bigger conversation within General Motors, where two lead people, a consumer had called in to customer care after sales, all the way up in Detroit, Michigan, and they heard about it. It was something about there was a problem with their vehicle that had to do with a resolution of a problem that I was giving. And this stuff is public knowledge. Everything is on the NSTA website. And so I made sure everything that I'm talking about is fully legal, fully public. I called down to the Atlanta region, sent somebody from 2 people from the Atlanta region to come in and talk to me. One thing I agreed about, one thing I did not. And a lot of things that I brought up to them that, this actually happens nationwide. But people were wanting to know the history on their vehicle, like stuff that's maybe 10 to 15 years old. And all I needed was the VIN number. And they were putting them in the comment section. And we were kind of going back and forth so I could tell them what was done, anything that was done under warranty.
So
That
you're
was
looking up
basically it.
their OEM service history by VIN.
Yeah. And I told them flat out that, listen, I can pick my phone up right now and call to the service drive and give them the last date of the VIN to my truck, and they will tell it to me over the phone. And they were like, they're not supposed to do that. This is nationwide policy that the consumer has to show up with their photo ID, their registration to the vehicle, because they were like, well, what if the cartel calls in? And I started laughing. I was like, what does that matter? What does that have to do with?
I don't want Pablo Escobar to know if my recall has been performed or not.
That made no sense, but I'm like, well, they said it's no different than having a key cut. I was like, whoa, that is an entirely different conversation.
Incredibly different.
Way different conversation to do that. But they wanted me to stop talking about parts distribution problems and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, I'll agree to the 2 things. I mean, and I brought it up to another Ford tech that him and I started doing that 4 years ago, and people liked it. And apparently somebody within Ford called down to the dealership he was at because he caught somebody with a Mustang that had a shift quality and a manual transmission, and hey, there's a special coverage on that, blah blah blah, and said that he coached the consumer to come in. He didn't do the repair
to make the right words, use the right words in his complaint to get it covered.
Wasn't even that. He didn't even fix the car at the dealership. He did it at his house in the driveway. He took the Ford fluid out of the transmission and put Honda Synchro Mesh in it and fixed it. Fixed it with Honda Sync. He kind of just got the attention of the consumer and did a repair off-site. Did nothing at the dealer. Never did any filming at the dealership. But I guess, and it was a big debacle, and the service manager fixed the operation, and the GM of the dealer told Ford to go screw themselves, basically. But my owner did not.
Yeah, I'm gonna say
he didn't like that.
Good on that dealership for standing up for their dude, right? But that's why I feel like social media personalities like yourself should maintain a degree of anonymity so that it doesn't come back to bite you. Because I've known of others that once their online persona has grown to a degree that they've been fired from a job where they were performing well because the owner was scared of their ability to torpedo their business if they went online and badmouth them or something to that effect. That's crappy of the owner, one, but 2, I mean, anonymity is probably a little bit good because if you get too big, you don't want the crazies coming out, right?
Yeah, because we've had that recently, even with another shop that's out in Utah, and like I've not said anything really bad, just giving my opinion, my professional opinion on certain things, and just saying it respectfully, and even saying it in the video that I'm just saying this very respectfully and being respectful about it. And that's it. I'm not like attacking the shop. I'm not attacking the owner or anything, but just giving some insight into some things that I've seen that I've not seen as of why it's been this way. It's just opinion. It's not saying that you're wrong, this is right type of deal. And people called, text me directly, text the shop, emailed the shop, like it's a comment in the comment section on social media. I'm like, what is this? This is ridiculous. It just gives his opinion on it. And I'm like, this made no sense why this happened. But yeah, anonymity is very important. Being discreet about certain things is important. Because early on, there were technicians that got fired. Even just having a vehicle in the bay, not identifying who the owner of the truck is or anything, it's just showing a vehicle. but it had to do with a certain company that rents out carrier vehicles, and lack of maintenance was done.
Mm-hmm.
And when they opened the engine up, it was full of sludge.
Weird
And
how that works.
yeah, well, it was a thing where that company, I guess that location had called into the dealer and wanted the technician fired.
For showing the truth. But yeah, that's if
Yeah,
and you know what? If that company spends enough money, they're going to get what they want.
well, it sparked a bigger conversation. He was not allowed to be back on social media. He could not do anything at the dealership whatsoever, even if he covered up where he was working, didn't say where he worked or anything, and just going over just the normal calls,
Yeah.
condition calls, correction, and confirm. So when we look at that, I got the same company's vehicle in my shop, and it was down for 6 months before I got the approval from the service writer of the location that was next to me due to lack of maintenance, and it caused having the engine and the transmission to be replaced. And we started looking at maintenance records, and it sparked a fire within this company to pull every vehicle that was out there that had not been in for service or maintenance required by the leasing company or the lease E. And they found tons of them on the road that that had been out for 30,000 miles without an oil change, and made them liable to pay for the repairs.
Run around with Jello in the crankcase.
But I took it to that level without identifying that I was at the dealer, and did some good things. And then that whole sparked conversation became something to where, okay, I've got to figure out how to do content. And then I do one video and it flew off with 2 million views, and it became my persona. And I started looking at that. I'm like, I can do this way. I have a voice this way, grab the attention and talk plainly to people, and going piece by piece, slowing it down. And it became a sound, like every Duramax owner was sitting there used my sound and showing their vehicle. It was funny. So it became something, and it sparked into turning it into educational stuff, more in depth educational, finding a niche on how to create the persona and educate and entertain at the same time.
I don't envy you what you have to do striking that balance. I just get online every Friday night and drink a half bottle of whiskey until I can't, feel feelings anymore, and then I log off.
Well, I'm the entertainment. You're welcome. and,
Nice. Nice.
and I like that. I like that I could do that for our community as well. Because it gets monotonous. Everybody's like complaining about work every day. We're not here. I don't want to listen to that mess when I get home. I want to sit there and scroll and see some funny stuff. So I see all the mechanics that are all over the place and the fun stuff they talk about. But sometimes it's just, I don't want to watch that. I want to see something else. So then my algorithm changes and I'll find something, go off into deep space and just go through the search bar and reorganize my algorithm to watch something else other than automotive. Get off the subject.
Good luck, man. Good luck. I've tried. It's nothing. I just keep getting sucked back into. And the funny thing is, you know, I'll have these conversations, and they'll have 20 or 30 people in. Everybody will be, interjecting their thoughts and everything, and we start drifting off into the highly technical stuff, and they'll all start making fun of me because it loses me, right? Because that's not where my skill set is. That's not where my knowledge base is.
Yeah.
And I'll start acting like I'm falling asleep and snoring, and then we'll come back into marketing or management or hiring or sales, and I get excited, and they start making fun of me for that. So I just realized that I'm just a, punching boy for the internet's amusement.
The complaint box.
Yeah, there you go.
That would be it. Here, let me just stick it in the complaint box.
So my dad used to have on his desk the complaint department, and it was take a number, and it was number 1, but it was on the pin on a grenade, right? So yeah, he had a different leadership style than me. I think he's probably way better at it than I was. Anyway, well, I've had a good time talking to you, man.
Yeah.
Does this mean you're coming up?
Fun.
next month?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just waiting
Awesome.
on Lucas to give me everything. He said that we had to get some social media stuff together and do all that. And he had already tried to arrange everything. I was just waiting on confirmation, I guess, on that end. Because I told him, like, I wanted to go last year, but I can't compromise between being everywhere and then away from the shop, and I'm not
There's
making
only
any
one of
money.
you. There's only
Only
one
one
of you.
person.
Yeah. So, well, I'm looking forward to seeing you there. And if he's not getting his stuff in a row in a timely fashion, let me know, and I'll kick him in the rear and push it a little faster.
Okay.
So,
Sounds good to me.
yeah, we're both on the board, and I tried to sucker him into being the president of the board, and he wouldn't do it, so I had to do it. So, we'll get it done for you.
All
All
right.
right.
Sounds good. And I appreciate
Thanks,
you being
Brandon.
here too.
Yeah, man. Have a great night.
Thanks. You too.
See you, dude.
Later.